How I Made It. 40 Successful Entrepreneurs Reveal How They Made Millions. Introduction. Entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes. There is no age, gender, nationality, or educational requirement to start your own business. Anyone can be an entrepreneur. In this book, the author Rachel Bridge has collected stories of successful entrepreneurs and their rise to success. You will learn that they are just ordinary citizens like you who decided to take the first step and keep on going. They did not give up through the ups and downs of their business until finally they made it. You can do it too. Take these stories as your inspiration. Hopefully, by the end of this book, you have the right motivation to finally start your own business. John Mudd, founder of the Real Crisps Company. John Mudd left school at age 15. First, he worked as a porter in a fruit market, then as a delivery boy for a bakery. John found out that he is good at selling things, so he got a job of selling cakes and sausages from a van. When he was 28, he was hired by Smith Crisps as a salesman. John worked his way up in the company. He became a sales supervisor, then a wholesale rep. For the first time in his life, he wore a suit to work and drove with the company car. Soon, John became an area sales manager. After 15 years in Smith's Crisps, John moved to Benson's Crisps as a marketing manager. Part of his job was to create new ideas of new crisps. John found out that there is an available market of selling crisps to local bars and pubs. The senior executives rejected this idea, but John was convinced that this idea could be a winner, so he pursued it himself, even if he was already in his 50s. John said that it was a bit scary. People tell him that it was a risky thing to do at his age, but he also got nothing to lose, so he pushed through it. John wrote a business plan and consulted an accountant on how to get funds. After that, John made his own market research. He put Mark & Spencer's crisps in plain paper bags. He went to pubs and asked people to taste them. 80% of the people liked the crisps, and so John continued with his idea. He established the Real Crisps Company. He called it Real because it's the combination of his daughters' names, Rebecca and Rachel. John was able to gather the funds of 135,000 euros. 25,000 euros came from his severance package from Benson's, and the $100,000 was from a bank loan. John leased a factory in Wales and hired 3 employees. Real Crisps opened for business in 1997. John realized that he has many things to learn. He had experience as a salesman, but never as a managing director. For the first 2 years of his business, he worked for 7 days a week and 15 hours a day. John started selling his product to bars and stores in Wales, but he soon realized a problem. The crisps were too oily because the cookers were not of high quality. The business was also running out of money. Out of the 135,000 euros, 80,000 euros came to buying secondhand equipment and a few months' worth of expensive packaging. The companies Asda and Tesco were interested in Real Crisps, but John was running out of capital. He went to some potential investors and found Bar and Restaurant Foods. They are willing to underwrite Real Crisps bank loans in exchange for 80% of the business. John agreed. It was a difficult decision, but Real Crisps needed it to grow. Soon, Asda and Tesco started to display Real Crisps. The sales increased quickly. Then in 2007, John Mudd sold his business for 10 million euros. It was 10 years after he founded it. John was very proud of what he achieved. Every time he went into a supermarket and saw Real Crisps, he told himself, "Whatever happens, I'm the guy who started it." Darren Richards, founder of datingdirect.com. Since he was young, Darren had always dreamed of having his own business. He did not aim to get good grades at school because he was so confident that he would be an entrepreneur. At age 16, however, Darren quit school and became a waiter for several years. While he was working at the restaurant, his mind was always wandering. Darren was always thinking of businesses that he could start. One night, he thought of setting up an online dating site. Darren was age 33 at the time. He was single, and he just broke up with his long-term girlfriend. He realized that the internet is a perfect venue for meeting single women in his area, but he was disappointed. The only dating sites he saw were based in America. Also, none of the sites seemed to take dating seriously. Some members have usernames like Sexy Babe or Hot Pants. Darren thought that he could not be the only one who was looking for a serious date. He started to do his research. He conducted polls with people in the street. He also asked his friends for their opinion. Darren read a few website magazines. Then he created a simple site where single men and women could make their profiles. The site was very basic, but it got a lot of hits. This encouraged Darren that many people out there need it. He looked for professional website developers who can make a full-fledged dating site where members could chat with each other every day. Eventually, he found a web developer who was willing to create an interactive site in exchange for 20% stake in the company. DatingDirect.com was launched, and within 3 months, it had 40,000 members. But Darren still had a big problem. How could he make people pay for his service? The only way he could do it was to have them to pay by credit card. However, the bank Barclaycard rejected Darren 3 times. They thought that a dating site was high risk. For them, the business was in the same line as gambling or pornography. What did Darren do? He drove all the way out of town to the house of the bank officer in charge. Darren gave the bank officer a live demonstration of his website. The bank officer was impressed. He agreed and let Dating Direct to use Barclaycard facilities. Darren began to charge €15 a month per member on the site. By 2004, 5 years after its launch, DatingDirect.com already had 1.5 million members. It had a profit of several million pounds. By 2007, the site had 5 million members. Darren then decided to sell his business to the French company Mitech. It was for over €30 million. That same year, Darren launched his new online company, www.propertyindex.com. It is a site for selling or renting properties overseas. He also bought 3 bars in Tenerife. Penny Streeter, founder of Ambition 24 Hours. When Penny first tried to establish her own recruitment agency, it was a disaster. She borrowed €30,000 and rented a luxury office. She bought designer chairs, big desks, and fancy photocopiers. 3 months later, the recession hit, and there were absolutely 0 clients. Eventually, Penny had to close the business. She lost every bit of the €30,000, and she was even buried in debt. The failure was basically because of lack of business experience. Penny was born in Zimbabwe. She was raised in South Africa. She came to live in England at 16 years old and worked as a trainee. She also worked as a beauty therapist. Penny soon realized that it was not for her, so she came looking for work in a recruitment agency. She was hired on the spot as a consultant. Soon, she was promoted as a branch manager. That is when Penny tried to establish her own business. When her business failed, Penny returned to South Africa to help her sister run a restaurant. By then, her youngest child became sick with meningitis, so Penny decided to go back to UK and start a new life. It was a difficult point in Penny's life. She got divorced. She was pregnant with her 3rd child. She was completely broke. For a while, she and her children had to live in a homeless shelter. Penny looked for jobs, but she continued to dream of having her own recruitment agency. She decided to give it a try again. This time around, Penny was careful. She had a friend who let her use a small desk in his office. She did not go to the bank because she knew that they would only laugh at her. Penny's mother helped her. They worked alternate days so that they could take care of the children. They started recruiting secretaries. Then they expanded to recruiting staff in the financial sector. This time, Penny did not waste money. She was very careful of the company's expenditure. One day, Penny was asked to supply caregivers to a nursing home. She realized that there is a potential market there. Nursing homes always have a demand for caregivers, especially in remote towns. Penny worked hard. Sometimes she picked up the caregivers herself and drove them to the nursing homes. She realized that there was a demand for more caregivers 24 hours a day. She began to give training to caregivers, and her company also became a licensed nursing agency. The business began to supply nurses as well. Penny's company, called Ambition 24 Hours, became a national operation. It has 19 branches all over UK. It has 200 employees and an annual turnover of €65 million. Penny says that her success is due to pure hard work. She says that successful people are those who don't quit on their business. They are the ones who are always thinking of ways to move the company forward. Conley, inventor of the hip and thigh diet. Rosemary's journey began when she became overweight while working as a secretary. She managed to lose a few pounds, and so she wondered if she could start a slimming club and help other women to also lose weight. Her initial clients were her neighbors. They gathered on her kitchen table. Next, Rosemary spent €8 to print posters, and she booked the local village hall. She charged €1 for joining and 25 pence for attending weekly sessions. Rosemary was so excited that her members got on the scales each week and found out that they lost up to 7 pounds. It was very rewarding for her. She did not look at the Slimming Club as a money earner. She did it because she loved doing it. Rosemary's classes became so popular. 6 months later, she quit her job as a secretary to focus on her Slimming Club. She opened more classes to meet the demand. 10 years later, Rosemary sold the business to IPC magazines. It was for €52,000. She stayed on the company to oversee the expansion of the clubs across UK. It might seem that Rosemary hit the jackpot, but the reality was different. Rosemary was under a lot of pressure. The expectations from her were very high. She felt that she would have a nervous breakdown. She was working long hours every day, and it led to the failure of her marriage. Rosemary was also diagnosed with gallstone problems. The doctors told her that she needed to undergo surgery. But Rosemary decided to go on a low-fat diet as an alternative treatment. It was effective. She also lost a lot of weight. Rosemary knew that she discovered something special. She lost fat in her hips and thighs. A local radio station tried out her new diet to a few volunteers, and it was successful. Rosemary wrote the book Hip and Thigh Diet. She was paid in advance the amount of €750. A year later, she was given her first royalty check. Rosemary bought a new car. Her book Hip and Thigh Diet became a bestseller. Rosemary soon had her own fitness and diet empire. She published 30 books, created 30 fitness DVDs, launched her own magazine, and had a franchise chain of 180 fitness clubs with 80,000 members. Rosemary said that she would not be where she is if she did not experience her nervous breakdown. Her philosophy in life is to always have something to look forward to and always try to make a difference. Harry Cragoe, founder of PJ Smoothies. When Harry was 8 years old, he would listen under the table while his parents and their friends talked about their business ventures. Most of his parents' friends were entrepreneurs. Even at a young age, Harry could not imagine a life working for someone else. He left school at 18 years old. He began to work as a commodity broker in the city. But he soon quit to run a company with his 3 friends. They had a business of selling water filter systems. The business took Harry to Los Angeles. When he was in UK, he was really unfit and his skin was pasty white. But when he got to Los Angeles, he adopted the Californian way of life. Harry started going to the gym and jogging along the beach. He developed a liking to smoothies, which is made from blended fruit. Harry believed that part of being fit is putting good food inside the body. He loved smoothies so much that he thought to build a business out of it. Harry sold his share of the water filter business and went back to UK. He visited some sandwich bars and discovered that the only healthy drinks that they offered were orange and apple juice. Harry was convinced that there was a market for smoothies. He asked one of his friends to be his business partner. Together, they raised €100,000 as capital. Harry sold all his possessions to get the business started. He sold his car and his house. The only things left with him were his clothes and shoes. He truly believed that smoothies would be a big hit. However, Harry quickly found out that the British manufacturers did not agree. They were not willing to help Harry produce the smoothies. And so, he went back to US, and he found a manufacturer there who was prepared to make a first batch of 40,000 cases. The smoothies would be frozen for shipping to UK. Next, Harry found a designer for the packaging. He also spent 12 hours every day looking for store retailers who were willing to try out his product. Harry decided to call the smoothies Pete and Johnny, or PJ for short, after the names of his 2 friends. Harry's first customer was Cullen's Supermarket in Fulham. During that time, it was freezing cold outside, and PJ smoothies were more expensive than the other products on the shelf. But within 2 hours, half of the bottles were sold. It was very exciting for Harry. People told him that it was just beginner's luck. His product would be here today and gone tomorrow. But PJ Smoothies continued to be a success. Soon, the supermarket chains Tesco and Waitrose secured their orders. 2 years passed like this. The smoothies were manufactured in US and shipped frozen to UK. Eventually, Harry decided to run a factory in UK. It was a major decision because a factory is like a hungry animal. As you expand, you need to put more money into it and buy more equipment. But owning a factory allowed PJ Smoothies to launch new flavors. Harry was working 24/7 in his business. Then came an accident. He fell off from an 80-foot cliff. Harry broke his hips, his wrists, and a few other bones. Harry was supposed to be confined to the hospital for 6 weeks, but he tried so hard to get out of there only after 2 weeks. Harry insisted that no one will be there to run the business. By 2004, PJ Smoothies was already selling 350,000 bottles a week. The company had a turnover of 12 million euros a year, and the smoothies already come in 14 different flavors. In 2006, Harry sold the company to PepsiCo for 20 million euros. Mike worked for 12 years as a salesman of furniture. Then he decided that it was time for him to start his own business. It was not ideal, however, because his wife was pregnant with their first child. They were also moving to a new house. Mike was an area manager for a large chain of furniture stores. But he was 30 years old, and he wanted to take a chance. He thought that it was a good opportunity to try his own business. His wife was very supportive. She said that if they fail, it's better to do it now than later. And so, Mike convinced the bank to lend him 8,000 euros. He added it to his savings of 4,000 euros. Then he borrowed 4,000 on his credit card. He said that it was for kitchen renovation. Next, Mike leased a former motor repair shop and named his business Sofa Bed Center. The whole place smelled of oil, but Mike did his best to make it look good. The night before he opened the business, he was scraping the floor. He was making final touches for the doormat to fit. On the first day, Mike was lucky to sell 2 sofa beds. He was very happy. He was convinced that his business would be a success. Mike was raised in Buckinghamshire. His father died when he was 12 years old. Mike had to start working from a young age. He also needed to transfer from private school to public school. His classmates teased him because he had a posh accent. On weekends, Mike got out on his bike and carried a bucket. He washed people's cars. When he was 16, he bought used tents from campsites. He resold them through ads in the local newspaper. 2 years after Mike established the Sofa Bed Center, he opened up 3 more stores. Aside from sofa beds, he started to sell beds too, and so he changed the name of his company to Dreams. His accountant said that it was an ugly name, but Mike believed in it. He said that it's like the name Virgin. Dreams can adapt to anything related to sleep. For example, they can also start to sell bed linen, bedside lamps, and even pajamas. In 2002, the company began to manufacture beds in its own factory in the Midlands. The beds were sold to hotels, nursing homes, and universities. The sales increased. By 2008, Dreams had over 185 branches all over the country. It had a turnover of 200 million euros. Mike believes that success is a combination of 3 things. It is due to luck, having the right skills, and plenty of hard work. Conclusion. You learned about the success stories of Real Crisps Company, DatingDirect.com, Ambition 24 Hours, Hip and Thigh Diet, PJ Smoothies, and Dreams. You learned that entrepreneurs could come from any background. They can be male or female, old or young, well-educated or not. There are no rules when it comes to setting up your own business. Have you been dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur? Are you waiting for the right time or thinking about someday? The right time is now. Just like all the entrepreneurs in this book, the path is scary at first, but you just need to keep going. Believe in yourself. All businesses have its ups and downs, but with determination, perseverance, and hard work, you will succeed.